Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success, and what they have learnt along the way. Hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I have the joy of introducing you to Carol Boston, who is the queen of reframe. She's had over 27 years of experience as a sales expert in Fortune 100 companies like AT&T, Sprint, and Paychex. She's also a professional, or was a professional, tennis player and is known to be relentless in supporting her clients to get the results they want. So welcome to the program, Carol.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be chatting to you today. And I want you to tell me and the listeners about why you're passionate about helping people reframe their challenges. You know, with your background in working in sales and being a professional athlete, what does it mean to you to focus on reframing challenges so that you can double, triple, sort of monumentally exceed your outcomes and other people that you work with?
I'm going to start off by telling you a story of when I was in seventh grade. And I came home with my report card and I was really excited. And I gave my report card to my dad. Now, I'm from the deep South and my dad has a heavy accent. So he goes, "Carl, why'd you get a B?" And I said, "But Dad, I got 5 A's. He says, "That's not what I asked you. Why'd you get a B?" And I said, "But David," that's my older brother, "but David got 2 C's and a D." My dad said, "We expect a lot more out of you." And how I heard that as a child was, I had to be perfect. I had to have all A's. I had to earn love. And so for the majority of my life, I've been an overgiver, over-deliverer, and not getting my needs met.
Wow.
And so learning the art of reframe, and I'll tell you how that came about, has allowed me to reframe that now and look back and say, oh, he just knew I was more gifted and wanted me to rise higher.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's powerful for me, especially taking that into intimate relationships. And I've really just come to that in I haven't been on a date in 5 years by choice, right? Working on me. Last relationship was very, very toxic. And in learning that piece, that in that relationship, I constantly overgave and never got anything in return. But it was so familiar because it was my relationship with my mother. So familiar, right? And oftentimes we will stay somewhere or stay in a pattern that's familiar, even when it's not comfortable. I want your audience to hear that, right? Because oftentimes we'll say, oh, I'm going to stay because I'm comfortable. That's not always true. You might be very uncomfortable, but you'll stay because it's familiar.
Exactly.
And so there's been 3 pivotal times in my life. You'll hear me, if you hear any of my talks, I talk about how sometimes you have to trust in someone else's vision for you until you can believe it for yourself. Now, I was raised between 2 brothers in a very competitive household. I was raised in the country playing sports with the boys. I didn't know what having a girlfriend was like. Didn't know. And so when I was 13, and I was really good at football, but let me tell you something. Back in think about this, 1971. I was breaking barriers and I didn't even know it. I just knew that I loved to play baseball. I was the first girl to play on the Little League hardball team with the boys. I was the only girl. Now, my mother, this was terrible. My mother was the type of person where she wanted everybody to believe she lived behind a white picket fence.
Yeah.
And she had 3 great kids and a perfect husband and a dog and a cat. And the world can't see anything. And in the deep South in the United States, there are rules, both spoken and unspoken, as to what little girls are supposed to act like. Right? My mother was devastated when I did this. Now, my dad, on the other hand, was like, yeah, that's my girl. Go Carol. Right? So at least I had a cheerleader. So when I was 13, my dad says, Carol, let's go play tennis. And I said, what's that? And he goes, it's a lot like baseball. You can do it. Come on. So we go down to we go down to these courts. And after 30 minutes, I took this racket and I walked up and I put it down in front of the net. And I looked at my dad and I said, don't you ever ask me to come do this again. You brought me out here to embarrass me.
Oh, wow.
Fast forward 2 years later, I'm 15 years old. I'm on the swim team. And I noticed that my peers on the swim team would go down and play tennis in between swim practice. Well, coming from a competitive household, I was like, oh, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't come from money. We didn't belong to a country club. To this day, even after getting a tennis scholarship, which I'm going to tell you about, and becoming a professional, it wasn't until I became a professional that I ever had a private lesson, ever.
Unbelievable. Natural talent.
So I started with, no, not natural at all. That's why I took yes.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would go down there and I would listen to the pro teach the other kids who were taking lessons. And I said, my mind is a sponge. I'm going to learn. And then I said, and think about how this plays out in business today.
Mm-hmm.
I said to myself, if I could get those kids that are better than me to play with me, I can get better.
Exactly.
What do we talk about? What do we talk about today in business? Who do you surround yourself with? Who are the 5 people, right?
Exactly.
And so I would get these kids to play with me. So fast forward, I actually made it on the high school team. And I played number 6. Only the top 6 get to play singles. And I was ecstatic. Now, the other 5 girls ahead of me all came from money, all belonged to the country club, and all had been playing since they were 5 years old. And they had a private coach named Jerry Montgomery. Wow. And I was very blessed. Jerry Montgomery took a liking to me. And he would do things like, hey, Carol, I'm going to work on Lauren's forehand. You want to come return forehand? Because he knew I would listen to everything he was teaching her.
Yes.
And so I would. And then when my friends were going out partying on Friday and Saturday night and football games and stuff, I would go to bed and I would be at the courts at 6 a.m. when the sun came up, because the pro there, what he did is he built this platform for me. It was kind of like this. And he put it in the service box. I don't know if you know what a tennis court looks like, but he put it in the service box. So I could go down there at the crack of dawn on the weekends by myself with a grocery cart full of tennis balls. And if I hit my serve correctly, it would hit that mechanism that he built for me, and it would volley the ball back to me. So I could practice my serve and volley all by myself.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what I would do.
Yeah.
So fast forward to my junior year in high school. And I remember my dad, right? He says, now, Carol, you need to get a job, or you need to get an academic scholarship, because I can't send you to college. And I said, but Dad, I'm going to get a tennis scholarship. He kind of looked at me down his nose. And he said, like I said, Carol, get a job or get an academic scholarship. Now, here's something I want your audience to hear from that. So often as entrepreneurs, we want our family, right? We want our family to be our biggest supporters.
Exactly.
And we get disappointed. We get disappointed when they're not. But here's the thing. God didn't give our vision to them. He gave it to us. And so it's up to us to believe in it and to surround ourselves with the people that will support us. So Jerry believed in me, and this gentleman who was the football coach believed in me. So I trusted in their vision for me. I kept playing. And at the end of my senior year, I got 3 full scholarship offers, but they weren't to colleges that I really wanted to go to. I wanted to be an LSU Fighting Tiger, right? And that's where my doubles partner was going to go. I got a half scholarship to LSU. So I took out a student loan, and off I went. And guess what? I got to start at number 6 again, but I was playing with women that were way better than me. I knew I would get better. At the end of my freshman year, here's one of the modules in one of my talks is about how to become a professional athlete in your business. And one of the points I touch on is that sometimes you have to practice when everybody else is resting. It doesn't mean you never take it. I'm not talking about being a workaholic. So at the end of my freshman year, all of my peers on the team, what did they do? They went home and they rested. I got on the 21 and under tour. And I spent a lot of time on that tour, and I practiced as much as I could with the men, right? Because they hit the ball harder and they were stronger, and I could work on my reflexes and my timing. And I came back in August to tryouts, and guess what? I went from number 6 to number 2.
Ooh.
And
Yep.
before that semester was over, I went from number 2 to number 1, and I got my full scholarship. And then I became team captain for 3 years. So I call myself a business leadership coach, but when I look back, I had been stepping into leadership for a long time.
Yes.
Right? Stepping into leadership. Fast forward to spring of 1987. I'm still in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, going through a divorce. Mm. And I knew I didn't want to be a tennis teaching professional my whole life. And my car caught on fire, and the insurance wouldn't pay for it. Ah. What do you think I did? I called my dad. He had been in the insurance business.
Yeah.
Call him up. I tell him my problem. He says, now, Carol, you know I ain't in that kind of insurance. But if I can't help you, but if you come home, I have somebody to help you get a new car, even if you don't have a job. So off I go. And I get a new car, and I go to Dallas, Texas, and I live with my second cousin. She was head of personnel for Neiman Marcus. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've heard of Neiman Marcus in Australia, but it's like Saks Fifth. It's very, very, very high end. Store, like kind of like Harrods in London, I guess, high end.
Yeah.
So she taught me how to wear the navy suit and buy the pearls and wear the heels and pantyhose. Aren't you glad we don't have to wear pantyhose all the time anymore?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Particularly in Australia.
What's important is that it was the spring of 1987, and the U.S. government had just broken up AT&T and all the baby bell monopoly. So long distance telecommunications was in full competition for the first time. That's where Sprint was born, and MCI and all these companies were born. So I got hired by a company called Metro Media Communications. And the lady who hired me said, can you come in tomorrow and meet my boss, the vice president? I'm like, sure. So off I go the next day, and this vice president interviews me, and she kind of sits back and she kind of looks me up and down, and she says, great. I'll see you in Miami in a week. And I said, no, you won't. Now, mind you, I needed a job. And I said, you have an office in Dallas. I'm interviewing in Dallas. My friends from the tennis tour are in Dallas, and my family is 3.5 hours away. I'm working in Dallas. Pretty ballsy, right?
I love it.
So she calmly looked at me and she goes, I need somebody really strong in Miami in a week. And I pushed back again. I'm like, how do you know I'm strong? I've never done this before. And she looked at me. This is important, folks. She said, just trust me and be there in a week. Mm. And so I did. And that led to a very successful 26-year sales career for Fortune 100 companies. Mm. So that was the second pivotal time in my life that I trusted in someone else's vision for me. Mm. I got a tennis scholarship, and now I end up in this career.
Yeah.
So there I was, 26 years, and you can jump in anytime because I can tell you a story now.
Oh, I'm loving listening to you, Harold.
So 26 years, there I was, summer of 2014. I had sold over $70 million in revenue, walked across the stages, gotten the awards, could do it in my sleep, and I thought, I have it made. Until the day I got that phone call. And they told me they were cutting my territory by 80%. And I said, 80%? I've been building this territory for 6.5 years. Now, you don't have to tell me twice. I thought they were setting me up to fail. Now, let me tell you something about me. I was a weird salesperson, successful, but weird, because I loved large corporate structure, and I'm a rule follower. Not true for salespeople in general.
No.
I'm a rule follower. But a friend of mine whispered in my, and I love large companies, but a friend of mine whispered in my ear about an opportunity with this small company. So I went on the interview, and they interviewed me twice. They doubled my base salary, gave me a director title. I thought I could just see the potential.
Yeah.
Now, I negotiated a vacation up front in my contract because I'd already paid for the vacation. So 6 weeks into the job, there I am on vacation and doing what I thought at the time. I don't advocate this for my clients anymore, but at the time, I was staying in touch with my boss, the CEO, while I was on vacation.
Right.
What was it? What is it Maya Angelou tells us? She says, you do the best you can with what you know, and when you learn better, you do better.
Yes.
Well, I've learned better. When you go on vacation, you're on vacation. But at the time, so I get this email asking my opinion on something. And I replied right back. And I waited because he usually replies right back, and he didn't. So we went out and we enjoyed our day. 9, 10, 12 hours came in after dinner and cocktails. Ding. There goes my phone. It says, Carol Boston, you've got mail. And here's what it said. It said, Carol, comma, that's what you really think? And it had 5 question marks behind it.
Ooh.
Then it said, don't come into this office on Monday when your vacation is over. You're done here.
What?
I just got fired in an email? Wait, you asked me for that opinion.
Yeah.
I don't make this stuff up. This is a true story. So I came back to Florida and I had an interview the very next day. I had a great sales career. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed all over this country. I was flown to Beverly Hills, Chicago, Austin, Philadelphia, New York, sometimes 4 interviews deep in a company I couldn't get a job. And I thought, how ironic that I can sell $70 million for somebody else and I can't close a deal to get myself a job. Now, I was depleting my 401k because I was determined. Now, here's something I'm going to tell you. I recently became an international best-selling author. It was a collaboration, but my own book is going to come out at the end of this year. And my title is, You Can't Read the Label When You're Inside the Jar. And we're all in a jar. That's why we all need a good coach, right? And I tell my clients, but I can read your label and I can help you write a new label. Yes. So you can throw an anchor into your future and let go of that story that's keeping you tied to the past. I was in a jar. All I could do was see myself as a very buttoned up corporate salesperson. Nobody in my family had ever owned their own business. The thought of that freaking scared me to death, but I was depleting my 401k. So faith is my foundation, and that's where I always go. So there I was many months into this process, and I said, God, yeah, I was really yelling at this point. And I said, look, you created me. You know I'm not cut out to own my own business. I do not want to be an entrepreneur. You got to help me find a good job. And he literally 2 weeks to the day from that prayer, out of the blue, I get an email from a woman. I had met her one time out of town at a conference. Guess what she did? She gifted me a $3,500 ticket to go to Los Angeles to study at Guerrilla Business School. Now, I say my God has a sense of humor, right? Because Guerrilla Business School was a foundational school for entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. And you are the reluctant entrepreneur.
Very. So I figured what I'm doing isn't working and I don't know what I don't know. And off I went. And that's where I first learned about, that gave me the idea that you can't read the label when you're inside a jar. The second thing I learned there was about empowering questions. And I was amazed at them. And I was determined to master them. And I was going to master them and leadership, personal leadership. So I began studying with the best: Nirka, Michael Strasner, John Maxwell, Lisa Nichols. And this is in May of 2015. And between May of 2015 and the fall of 2017, I'd gotten 2 coaching certifications, invested well over 6 figures into my own personal development. And I still wasn't fully all in to being a coach.
What was holding you back?
Well, I was staying with what was familiar. And that was when I learned that the only place we grow is outside of our comfort zone. So what I was doing is I had these 3 products. I was an independent contractor, and I had these 3 services, if you will, that I was still trying to sell in corporate America. Why was I doing that? It was familiar. Was I comfortable? No, I wasn't making any money because I was all over the place. Now, here's an important thing I learned. There's a big difference. Here's a writer downer for your audience. There's a big difference between being committed and being convicted. Think about it. People decommit all the time, don't they? They say, I'm committed to this marriage for life until the day they're not, right? Until the day they're not.
Until they get a better offer, get sick of it.
Exactly, right. But when you're convicted, you won't rest until you get it done. And when you're convicted, you understand that your comfort and your convenience and your conviction don't live on the same block. They're not even in the same zip code.
And your conviction
So
was that little girl getting up in the wee hours of the morning to go down there and hit that ball. That's conviction,
yeah,
right?
yes, absolutely. You don't rest until you get it done, no matter what everybody else is saying around you, no matter what it looks like, right? Especially no matter what it feels like. One of the key things I help my clients, all of my clients, absolutely soar in confidence, not when they first come to me. And we start them off by learning that confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is a decision to act. And you can act your way into feeling, but you can't feel your way into acting. How many of you sitting out there going, yeah, I'll do it. I just don't feel like it yet. And it never gets done, right?
Exactly. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah. And so finally, in the fall of 2017, I was at Nova Southeastern University. It was my last visit to someone to try to sell these 3 services. And so while I'm talking to her about these 3 services, we talked about my coaching a little bit too. And we walked back across the campus and she stopped. This is my 3rd pivotal time. And she looked me up and down. There's something about those women that look me up and down and then they say something, right? And she looks at me and she says, I know what I'm going to do for you. And I said, what? She says, I'm going to hire you. I said, to do what? And she said, to be a speaker. I said, to be a speaker? She looked at me, she goes, don't give me that bullshit. You're a speaker. I said, who am I going to talk to? And she said, I'm going to put you in front of 55 to 60 of the top HR people in all of South Florida. Ooh. I thought, oh my God, I'm in the frying pan. And I said, when am I, this is December the 9th, 2017. And I said, when am I going to do this? And she said, in March. In March.
You're going to have the intensive program.
And I said, how long am I speaking for? She said, 90 minutes. I said, 90 minutes? I thought, I'm not in the frying pan. I'm in the fire. I'm in the fire. So then she said, you ready? She goes, don't give me that. Send me your CV and send me your fees. My fees? I'm going to get paid to speak? What? Now, as God would have it, it got pushed back from March to August the 9th. And during that time, even though I got myself into a very poor business situation that I got lied to and it cost me a ton of cash, I did meet 2 very key people in my life. And one, her name is Lori, and she's a content writer. So she was helping me with my speeches and my workshops, right? So another lady I met named Heather happened to be in HR. So fast forward to August the 2nd, I was at Kaiser University giving my first workshop, my very first workshop. And Kaiser gave me a hard time. They kept saying, I don't think you're right for our audience, blah, blah, blah. And Lori kept saying, just don't do it, Carol. I said, no way am I showing up at Nova and getting paid and never having done one before. Now, it wasn't the same exact workshop. I go to Kaiser, I get it done and go back and study. And 1 week later, I'm at Nova. So there was another lady that was also speaking at Nova, and she had about 16 PhDs behind her name. And she had written a book. So they paid her more money, and their reasoning was, she's written a book. So my best friends went with me early in the morning to set up. It was a half day in the morning breakfast thing. And we walk into the main room, and there's this man with this booming voice, and he goes, Carol Boston. And I look up, and the lady who hired me was standing right there, and she looks at him and she goes, Barry, you know Carol? He said, Carol's the only reason I came today. I thought, oh my God.
Pressure.
Exactly what I thought.
Better be good, Carol.
Barry and I had worked together for 10 years in the 90s at AT&T. So the other lady, she had a nice accent just like you, but hers was Canadian French. Yes. So I go up and I decide I'm going to help her set up. And I'm helping her and she says, so Carol, how long have you been on the circuit? I said, what circuit? She looks at me like I've lost my mind. She goes, the speaking circuit. I go, oh, I'm not supposed to tell you. She goes, why not? I said, last Thursday was my first one. This is my second one. Now she really looked at me like I lost my mind. So she goes first. And to be perfectly candid, my best friend halfway through said, "Can I take a nap?" I'm like, "Rebecca." So this poor lady really lost the audience. So it was getting close to my turn. And I went out and went to the restroom and I'm stretching, getting ready. The lady who hired me comes out, grabs me by the shoulders. She's in my face. And she goes, "You are going to increase the energy in the room, aren't you?" And I said, "Absolutely."
Your stand-up show at the ready.
And I'm like, "Absolutely."
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know if there's enough time for all my content. And she said, "That's what we want, content. You're not using those stupid slides thing, are you?" I go, no slides.
No.
So here's one of the biggest key lessons. My first lesson I learned as a speaker: make your own time cards and take your own time cards, because she volunteered to keep my time for me. So when it came time for her to hold up the first time card, she wrote it with a little bitty big pen. I couldn't even read it. She's all the way across the room. So I just said, "I can't read that."
Yeah.
And so she tells me the time, thinking about it. So I get everybody involved in an exercise at their different tables. And I went over to her and I go, no, I have more time. We started 15 minutes late. She goes, "Oh yeah, let me change my time cards." Time goes by. She's at the back of the room, standing next to my best friend, my BFF, who's taking video. And she holds up another time thing. Now she's even further away. So I just laughed. I can't read that far. And they both spoke at the same time. What I heard was 3 minutes. I said, 3 minutes, give me 4. Give me 4 and I'll wrap it up. So I wrap it up. Everybody's stepping up, clapping. This woman makes a beeline, gets in my ear, and she said, "We didn't say 3 minutes. We said 30 minutes. Sit them down and teach them something."
Keep going.
So I'm like, "Hey, everybody, this is awesome. We have time for a lot of Q&A. Sit back down." There was 3 people in the audience that knew me. 2 had heard me speak at Kaiser the week before, and they all told me it was a God moment. I have to tell you, those last 30 minutes, I was so in my element. Nothing scripted, just teaching, just talking like I'm doing here, pouring into people. And one of the things you'll hear me say is, you heard me say it tonight. I'm like, "That's a writer downer," right?
Yeah.
So as I'm in this phase talking at the end, I said something, and there's the lady on the front row. She goes, "That's a writer downer, huh?" I go, "Yeah."
Get your
So
right now. That's
writer
right.
downer. So what happened, to sum up this story, to tell you how I'm telling you how I became the reluctant entrepreneur, and I'm telling you how I now believed in somebody else's vision and I became a professional speaker. So afterwards, there was a lady that came up who heard me speak at Kaiser, and she's a big, tall German lady. And I'm looking up at her, and she says to me, "Carol, you were good last week." And then she pauses. And I look up at her, she goes, "You were fucking amazing today." I'm like, "Oh my God."
And you're like, yes.
And then this lady walks up to me and she says, "Do you have a business card?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, she says, "I'm vice president of human resources for American Express. I want you to teach this to my team." And I said, "Do you have a card?" And she said, "No." Now, I'm a salesperson. Salespeople know love is in the follow-up. You got to follow up. You don't give me your card, I'm screwed. That's what I thought. She had no card. She told me her name, but she had no card. This was August the 9th. Good to her word. She called me in September. And in 2019, I was hired 6 times to teach inside American Express.
There you go.
Because I trusted that woman's vision for me, that I could be a speaker.
Wow. That is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Isn't that interesting that you trusted her vision for you, which was actually who you were? It was actually you then. It was her ability to notice your potential, your aptitude, your genius zone, that you were actually unaware of it. So she did.
Yes.
You did trust her vision for you, but it actually became, a revelation that you're actually doing exactly what you were made to do, who you were made to be. Incredible.
So let me ask you a question as a business coach. Have I been living my life by design or by default by
Mm.
trusting in other people's visions?
Mm.
What do you think?
I think you've been doing both by default because you've actually known internally you've been following your natural drive, your natural interest, your passion and your God-given talents, obviously, to become that sales executive, to have that journey. But it's been, for me, I'm hearing in this story that now you're actually seeing the design ability is to actually really know and believe. I think before you didn't have a belief of what you could achieve. And for me, you only ever achieve what you believe. So I think you were doing both. I think you were going along and you've been incredibly successful. And most people would go, hey, Carol, that's enough, right? You're amazing. And you are. There's nothing wrong with that. But to actually now be where you have the learnings that you've had and be so happy doing what you do, you go, I can't believe I actually get paid for this, right? That's when you know you're in your natural place. You found your perfect sweet spot. And that for me is a life by design. Goes, yes, now you don't have those limiting beliefs. Like nothing's impossible now, is it? Right? It's like
It isn't. And when you say that, I love that you say that, because I'm going to give this freebie to your audience. First, let me tell you that with empowering questions, I was actually brought back inside American Express to do a deep dive into empowering questions around the areas of values and objectives. Empowering questions allow you to reframe from focusing on what isn't working. And they open you to opportunities you've never even considered when you put them out. And I have my clients do these out loud 8 to 10 times a day with the caveat that you're not to try to figure out the answer. You cannot be attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
You're telling God and the universe, I'm open to seeing, doing, saying, or having something I've never done before. Right? So the most powerful of all empowering questions, I have seen this change client lives. As a matter of fact, I could pull up my phone and read you a testimonial that was texted to me several months ago by a past client. That question is, and y'all want to, this is a writer downer. It's what else is possible? What else is possible? So right there in American Express, this lady said to me, but I have goals in here. I get rated. How can I not be attached to the outcome? And I said, well, let me give you an example. I said, you can't be attached to how the answer shows up. It's not that you don't have goals. There might just be a much better way, easier way, faster way of getting there.
Exactly.
And you might even get more than what you're shooting for.
Which is a revelation of being an entrepreneur, right? That you actually go, that's where innovation happens. That's where the magic happens. That's where the crazy happens, because people believe in the, well, what's next? You know, my biography is called Becoming Annie, the biography of a curious woman. So curiosity to me is that next step. It's that, well, what if? What if there are no limits? What if this is possible? What if I don't predetermine what I want the answer to be or the outcome could be? Then everything opens up, doesn't it? And it's scary and you have to really lean into it, but the world doesn't fall down, right? And you grow exponentially. Is that what you found?
Absolutely. And I love what you said, because I've been known to say that crazy is necessary so that amazing can be born.
I'm all about a little bit of crazy.
I can see that we're like so much in alignment, right? And it's so true, because that's exactly what empowering questions do. They allow you to be curious, right?
Yes.
To ponder and to wonder. And over here, I'm a big Oprah Winfrey fan, so I say they create Oprah aha moments.
Yes.
Just aha moments. And I don't know how much time we have, but I'd love to tell you a client story that kind of exemplifies that if we have time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I had a client back in 2018. I had a physical office, and she came in the first time. And by the fourth time, every time she got later and later and later. She was seriously late. So she comes in, and I'm the shake your hand, give you a hug girl. So trust me, I'm so ready for COVID to be over. So anyway, I was attending a big networking event, Tower Club, Fort Lauderdale. 250, 300 people once a month, drinks, hors d'oeuvres. It's a big business event.
Yeah.
I will never forget being there one night, and all of a sudden I look up and this woman across the room stares at me, and she starts making a beeline for me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, do I know who this is? And she comes right up and she goes, I've been looking for you just to get a hug.
Oh,
I gave her this big old hug, and she goes, you give the best hugs. And I'm like, honey,
imagine.
I'm so sorry. Have I hugged you before? She goes, yeah, last month. I'm Cynthia's friend. I go, oh, okay.
Oh,
Good.
wow.
My client was super late. And I said, sit down and get your pen and paper out. We're not going to miss this coaching opportunity. She kind of looks at me because we don't typically start like that, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity. So here's a writer downer for you. I said, write it down. I said, how I do anything is how I do everything. And she wrote it down. Now she's a human being. We're all human beings. What do we typically do when we show up late somewhere? We want to give a defensive story about why we're late. And so she started to do that. I said, no, this is not about you being late. It's not? No, I don't need a story. She said, what's it about? I said, listen, I want y'all to really listen how I formed my question. I never asked her, why were you late? And I'll tell you why in a minute. I said, where else in your life are you not showing up for you? And she looked at me and she goes, huh? Down. Where else in your life are you not showing up for you? I said, you pay me in advance for my time. I'm not going to give you money back. And I'm not going to give you extra time because I have a schedule of clients that I keep. Write it down. And she did. And she looked at me kind of sheepishly and she goes, is that my homework for the week? I said, honey, that's your homework ad nauseum. I want it on your refrigerator. I want it on your dashboard. I want it on your mirror. I want it in your shower out loud 8 to 10 times a day. Don't try to figure out the answer. So she said, okay. We went back to work. And I don't know if it was 10 weeks or 12 weeks. We were working on stuff. And one day, all of a sudden, she looks at me and her eyes get really big. And I'm like, what's up? She goes, oh, that's another place I'm not showing up for me. And she began to get these awarenesses of where she was self-sabotaging. The long and the short of it is that plus the other tools we put in place, we doubled her income in 6 months. Now, had I asked her, why are you late? I want you to think about this. An empowering question. I'm giving people pay me thousands of dollars to learn this. I'm not kidding. Ask American Express. Tens of thousands. So an empowering question never, ever, ever starts with the word why, ever. Why brings in defensiveness, which brings in the ego, which brings in emotion. And when emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. It's true for every human being. Had I said to her, why are you late? She would have given me some story. We would have accomplished nothing. But I asked her a very empowering question, which led to her having all these awarenesses, being able to make all these changes in her habits that weren't working for her.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I hope everyone's written that down. Right?
That's a big writer downer.
Yeah, that's a big writer downer because we are the sum of our habits, right? And that's it. What you do in that moment is an example of, okay, well, if you don't value, the word value came out in that conversation for me. Like if they don't value your time, they were late because they didn't value it enough, right? And therefore they don't also value themselves enough, their own self-worth, their time, their energy, what they're capable of. And if you don't have that for yourself, then why would you have that for anyone else? And it's a character trait as well,
Yeah, absolutely.
Showing up ready to be grateful for what you receive and also to be able to give out your very best, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me, Carol, when you got handed that tennis racket from your dad the first time, when you put it down and you said, don't ever show me this again, was that because you weren't instantly going to be great at it? Was it because it was new? And then you only had that moment 2 years later with the other girls, the value changed. You want to be with the group.
Not just with the group, but my competitive nature came out. If they can do it, I remembered back when I put that racket down and said, I can't do this because it didn't come easy. It did not come easy.
Mm.
I would tell you, I won so many of my tennis matches mentally, not necessarily physically.
Mm. Yeah.
My coach, my first year of college, would tell you that I gave her heart attacks. She told me, you give me heart attacks. because I was a very slow starter.
Mm.
And you had to win 2 sets out of 3. And I can't tell you how many times I lost that first set and she'd be having a heart attack.
It's like, don't do this to me. Yeah, exactly.
And actually, someone not too long ago reached out to me and said, why didn't you tell me that you had a top 10 winning record at your university? And I replied back and said, because I didn't know. I don't follow that stuff, right? But apparently I had a very good career overall. So it was about, think about what I told you, my first story that I believed as a child, you had to be perfect. I was nowhere near perfect at tennis. It is nothing like baseball. That was a total lie. I was awkward. I was so far from perfect that I was like, I can't do that. Don't ask me to do this. This is embarrassing.
But isn't that a wonderful learning that you don't have to be perfect, and no one is perfect? It's the story of our lives that we get this perfect view of, if you're not perfect, if you're not, pretty, quiet, slim, not abrasive, whatever someone else's package is, expectation of you, then, how easy it would have been just to put that racket down and go, I don't try things that I'm not going to be perfect at. And look at your life, because you went, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it despite the imperfections, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful story, and such a great message, because I see that time and time again with women that I coach, and I'm sure you'll find that the same. It's this struggle with, I don't want to try. Why? Because I might not be good enough, because I might fail, because it might be embarrassing, and all of those, moments. So I think that's the biggest thing, just to throw out the perfect, right? Or work on your imperfections to get bloody good, right? Like, how bloody good have you got? Like, that's right. Just to go, okay, well, I'm going to just keep chiseling away.
Yeah.
Day after day after day, your whole career. I love it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's why I invest in coaches today. I believe everybody needs a coach, right? We can't see our own stuff.
Exactly.
And I want to get better and better and better at what I do.
So what's the future for you, Carol? You've got your book coming out.
Well, actually, my first book just came out. We made international bestseller. My next book won't be out till toward the end of the year. I'm right now creating my first online course. I've started my first Facebook group. It's the Year with No Fear group.
Love it.
Well, I actually own that domain name. I ran a 21-day summit last summer where I was blessed with 21 entrepreneurs from across the globe. And the title was Year with No Fear. Top entrepreneurs share how to give you tools, tips, strategies, and tactics to create a year with no fear so you can step into your future. And so I kept that domain name. I really liked it. So I've started a Facebook group. I'm working on my first online course. Got connected with an amazing person today who's connected at very high levels with a lot of major corporations. I really want to grow that corporate piece of my business, which has suffered during COVID.
Yeah.
I love teaching. I love training. I had to learn. I don't know if you've ever heard of, have you ever heard of Suzanne Evans?
No, sorry.
Her company's called Driven Inc. And her coaching business is about a $7 million business. But for the first 6 months of COVID, when everything was shut down, she made $2 million on Facebook Live.
Wow. There you go.
She's phenomenal at selling from the stage. And so I was in a program of hers, a brand new program this past fall. Only a few of us. There was no content to the program. We got on a Zoom call with her and she would talk to us about stuff. And she'd say, now go in the private group, do a 4-minute video on this. And you would do it and she would critique you. And then you'd meet again and go do this. So one of the things she told me was, the first thing was, more humor, Carol. You're funny. And I'm like, I can't be funny if you tell me to be funny. Right? So it was basically about loosen up and don't be so corporate. Right. And so yes. And one of the other things I learned, she had leaned in one day, I was talking to another lady, but I heard it, trust me. She said, Facebook Live is not a monologue, it's a dialogue.
Mm.
You're having a conversation. So fast forward, it was like a 5-6 week program, and we only got to have one practice. We had a 2-minute talk with a call to action, and we were going to be in front of hundreds of people. So we got one practice, and it was when there was a hurricane here. I was dog sitting for a friend last November.
Yeah.
No electricity at her house, no internet at her house, and I was determined. You talk about conviction. I'm like, who can come pick me up? I got to get in front of an internet, right? It turns out her aunt lived up the road, had one of those trucks, those big wheels. She came and got me, and through the flood, took me to her house, threw me in her bedroom and says, do what you need to do. So I set it all up. Right? And it came time for me to do my practice session for my 2 minutes with a call to action. And they called my name, and Suzanne looks in the Zoom and she goes, oh, Carol Boston, if you don't nail this, what's everybody putting all this speaking pressure on me for, right?
Pressure.
So I give my 2 minutes with call to action. And I have to tell you, this is the highest of praise from Suzanne Evans. I finished, and I got a lot of kudos in the chat, right? But Suzanne looked at the camera and all she said was, God damn, you've improved so much in 6 weeks. It's incredible.
Wow.
And I thought, that was worth it all to me. That was worth it all.
Yeah.
Worth it all. And so a lot of Facebook Lives, Queen of Reframe, that's part of my branding. You'll also find out coming up as part of my branding is C to the third power.
Mm-hmm.
My Facebook Live show during the day is called Carol's Courage to Confidence Corner. On Wednesday evenings at 5:30 Eastern time. What time would that be for you? You could come. That would be in the day for you. Craft cocktails with Carol.
Oh, well, I do love a cocktail.
I make 2 of them every Wednesday night. We have so much fun. We weave in just a little bit of business, but we have a lot of fun. Last Wednesday night, I had to shut it off after an hour. Nobody wanted to go home. I'm like, okay, y'all got to go home.
Sign of a good party.
So yeah, growing my business. That's, helping as many people as I can. I really, my clients introduced me. I'll be candid. My clients introduced me as this amazing business coach. I call myself I'm all about personal leadership, right? And I think it impacts everything that you do. So I call myself a business leadership coach because that's what they call me, and they get great business results. But I also see the phenomenal changes in personal leadership, right? Not just in confidence. They make better business decisions and not emotional decisions, right? They learn how to advocate for themselves. They have better boundaries. They get comfortable with their no. Oh, that's a big one for women, right?
Yes.
Learning that no is a complete sentence. That's huge for women, right?
Yeah.
It's a writer downer, folks. No is a complete sentence. So typically, I tell you what, if you said, Carol, what's your 30-second pitch?
Yeah.
I say female business owners and a few good men, right? Hire me to help them know their value, own their power, and advocate for themselves so they can rise up and become the lion and lioness leaders they were created to be, resulting in many of them doubling and tripling their income. About leadership.
I'm going to write that on my wall. That is beautiful. That's it, right?
Yeah, it is. I was on the Zoom today with a client in London. And I said to her, I was working on some new marketing language. And I said, before you hired me, what woke you up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Like, what was keeping you up at night? And she started to say something. And then she said, oh, but I think you and I agreed that it was clarity. I said, oh, you totally weren't clear, but that's not what you were thinking in the middle of the night, right? And she said, I didn't know how to grow my business. I didn't know if I could do it, but I wanted to grow my business for my kids, right? I didn't know how to do it. And one of the things I work with, a foundational piece for every one of my clients, is clarity. And what do I mean by that? When this lady hired me, I'm going to tell you the story. When she hired me, when we were taking her through the strategy session, one of the things she said was, I'm so pissed off. I've invested all this money to get good and blah, blah, blah. They should pay me more money because I've invested all this money. I get her signed up in my program, and I leaned into the camera and I said, okay, now I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. And she said, what? I said, people don't pay you for how much money you've invested in yourself, right? They pay you for speed and for value and for results, and you don't even know who you are. She looked at me.
It's true.
There hasn't been a person that sat in front of me, whether they hired me or not, that knew who they were truly created to be. I had an attorney, female family lawyer, and you got to stop me. I'll keep talking. I don't know how long your podcast is.
We'll just make it happen. It's as long as we need it to be, right?
Okay, just checking. So female family lawyer, I'm going to tell you, pre-COVID, I got my clients in the funniest ways. Like I said, I'm the shake your hand, give you a hug girl. So I did a ton of face-to-face networking events and I got referrals. That's all I did. So I'm at the Tower Club again, big mega mixer. And this lady walks up and introduces herself to me. I didn't know who she was. She was taller than me. And I don't know to this day what question I asked her. I don't know what question I asked her, but she responded. And here's what I did. I reached in my pocket and I got my business card and I looked at her and I said, "Oh, honey, you got serious boundary issues. I can help you with that. You need to come see me." And she came to see me.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, she became a client. She was a female family lawyer, had owned her practice for 4 years. And when I talk about clarity of who you were truly created to be, one of the things, it's foundational. I do this with every client. It's very personalized. We craft together 10 to 12 empowered statements so they can step into who they were created to be. One of the ones I created for her was, "I'm a powerful CEO of a fast-growing law firm." She couldn't even spit the words out. She looked at me and she goes, "My business isn't growing. Why do you think I hired you?" So when the leap is too big, I'm giving away valuable info to your family here. When the leap is too big from where you are to where you're truly created to be, you put a little phrase in front of it that says, "I give myself permission to consider." And that's where she started. And they do these statements out loud every day, at least twice a day. And I don't know if it was 2 months or 3 months, but one day, she walked in my office and she stood up and stuck her chest out and she said, "I'm a powerful CEO of a fast-growing law firm." And I was like, yes. And if you go to my website today, her testimonial is, in 6 months of working with me, she got more clients than she had in the first 4 years of her practice. Now, I want you to think about that. A part of that was owning what? That she was a powerful CEO of a fast-growing law firm. We create as we speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I love telling client stories. I could do that all night.
I know. And isn't it our joy though, when you work with clients and you see those aha moments and then the massive transformation, massive shift, this isn't just niggly stuff. You can go to any coach to get little improvements and go, "Oh, that was really great." Whereas results that just blow your mind are possible just from that shift in mindset to actually believe in yourself, believe in your true essence, believe in your capability, believe in what you can't yet see in its design, but it's all possible, and I love that. I love what you said about clarity. Sometimes people don't see that clarity, whereas when you've got a glass and it is just polished, you notice one blemish on it and it's wrong, right? So when we've got ourselves into this position, which then reflects on our boundaries and other things, what we will show up for, what we'll say no to, what will allow ourselves to, spend our time and energy and emotions on, if you've got that, you just need one little thing to go, it's not quite right, it's a bit of a blemish, it doesn't feel right, then it's easy to say no. It's easier to make those decisions. What you're teaching people to do and coaching them is to allow them to have that freedom to just be in their essence, into their true self. And I just love that. And I love everything you've shared with us today. So many gold nuggets. Oh my gosh. Thank you for being so generous with me and my audience, and now our audience. I know this is just going to have so many listeners just raving and watching and rewatching and writing down. So everybody, make sure that you've got, if you didn't write down those gold nuggets as Carol was sharing, make sure you go back and listen, because these these gems change your life. These gems have a result in massive shift, massive transformation. And as you can see, the learning in your story, Carol, is that, it doesn't happen straight away. We can all look back and go, gee, I should have, I wish I'd learnt that earlier. I wish I'd believed in myself then. I wish I'd seen, this, but things happen in their own time. And some of them do happen by default, and then some of them do happen by design. And so it's just our job to be constantly improving, right? Looking to keep chiseling away and becoming more by design than default, and
absolutely. And
that's the empowerment.
I told you faith is my foundation. And one of the things I tell my clients when we're going through that clarity process is that it's actually biblical. God says you must call things that aren't as though they are. You must believe and then you see. And so I teach my clients is that I believe God gave me a lamplight for my feet because all I need to do is take the next step and trust in the process.
Brilliant.
That's all you got to do is take the next step and trust in the process.
Yes. So how do people find you, Carol? What's your website?
My website is www.carolboston.com. All of my social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, is at the Carol Boston. Come see me, come find me. You might even want a copy of the book. It's Women Who Boss Up. Think about it, right? It's Women Who Boss Up, Secrets from Women Who Are Owning Their Health, Wealth, and Wellness to Create a Life They Love. Great. Yeah.
Oh, I'm definitely going to get one for myself. I love a bit of bossing up. So I think it's going to suit me very well. And I will definitely tell my tribe.
I'll send you the link. It's on pre-order.
Fantastic.
It's on pre-order.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Carol. I loved our chat today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes and, of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.